Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our Bayer graduate roles Q&A session this morning. My name is Ollie. I'll be kind of facilitating this session, and yeah, really pleased to have you on board. Hopefully, it will be a really worthwhile session to help you understand a little bit more around the application process for the roles at Bayer, the kind of what it's like to work at Bayer, and a little bit more detail on some of the streams specifically. As you can see, we're joined by a number of the graduates and staff at Bayer, who you'll be hearing from at various points today. We'll do a short introduction session very shortly, so hopefully you can find out a little bit more around who everyone is and the different areas that they work. So Connor is our facilitator today. He'll be kind of handling the technical side, so I might be asking him a few questions around the slides for those that are watching this back as a recording. So Connor, if you wouldn't mind putting up the slides, we can run through it. So to say thank you very much for joining. In terms of the agenda today, as I say, it's a very loose agenda. We've got, as I say, some introductions to find out who everyone is. We've got some kind of pre-prepared questions that hopefully will be helpful to ask of everyone on the call today around, as I say, life at Bayer, the application process and the specifics around their roles. So hopefully bring that to life a little bit more. And then we've also got some time at the end to run through some of the questions that you want to ask. So you'll see, hopefully on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a chat function. Please do feel free to put any questions that you have throughout the session in there. I'll be watching that chat, I'll be moderating it, and we'll have the opportunity to kind of ask some of those questions at the end of the session to either the graduates or the graduate recruitment team as well. So please do make use of the chat function. As I say, it will be kind of at the end of the session that we're able to ask those questions to the team. So hopefully that's a quick run through of what to expect from today. Without further ado, I'll start by doing some introductions. So I'll get mine out of the way quickly, and then you can hear from everyone else who's far more interesting on the call. So my name's Ollie. I work for a company called GTI, and we are working with Bayer on the graduate recruitment this year. So I'm the kind of client manager and sort of the coordinator of some of the recruitment for the 22-23 season. So we'll start, I guess, in order on the screen, in no particular order, with Joe. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, that would be great.
Yes, hi everybody. So Joe Pinkerton, I'm an HR business partner within Bayer, looking after the consumer health business, and also with my colleagues Jodie and Faye, who are also on this call, part of the graduate team. So we are looking at hiring you, developing you, and looking after your programme for that first sort of 18 months.
Fantastic, thank you. Jodie, if you're able to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone, morning. My name's Jodie Taylor. I'm one of the HR partners in the HR team, working with the consumer health, crop science and enabling functions business, but also working alongside Joe and Faye on the graduate programme.
Wonderful, fantastic. And Faye, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. So Faye Harper, I work in the talent acquisition team in our HR team, but also as a close part of our trio working on this graduate project. So welcome to the call. I hope you find out some interesting information today, and we look forward to applications.
Awesome, great stuff. And then over to our grads. So Grace, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off.
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, I'm Grace. I'm a current graduate on the Consumer Healthcare Life Science graduate program. So I spent 6 months in medical affairs, 6 months in regulatory affairs, and I'm in my last rotation, which is in business development and innovation.
Awesome, great stuff, and hopefully we'll hear more around everyone's roles in a little bit more detail as we go through the call as well. But thank you very much, Grace. Megan, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Megan. So I'm currently on the graduate scheme in consumer health in the marketing and sales scheme that Bayer have. So I've spent some time in the digital marketing team, some time in the brand team, and I'm just in my final rotation in e-commerce sales, and I will be moving to a permanent role in February as an assistant brand manager back in the marketing team.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Dominica, if you're able to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Dominika and I'm a current graduate trainee in medical affairs, transitioning into my new role as a medical science analyst in women's health. I've joined Bayer in September 2021 as a healthcare policy and patient access graduate. And after 12 months, I transitioned to medical affairs. And pleased to be here today. So please do ask questions. We're more than happy to help you. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Dominica. And lastly, we've got, I think, hopefully Sophie potentially joining us later on in the call. But Emily, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm more current project. I'm actually doing health.
I don't know if that's just me, Emily, but it's coming through a little bit crackly. I'm not sure if that's the same for others.
That's my connection. Is it working now?
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, so I'm Emily. I work in the patient access team at the current grad. I started in 2022, so only back in September, and I also do 50% digital healthcare technology as well.
Awesome, perfect. Second time is charm. Thank you very much. Awesome. Okay, so hopefully that kind of gives a bit of an introduction as to who we have on the call. You can see a really good variety of different kind of experience levels and different streams, different areas of the business as well. So hopefully give you a really good overview of what it's like to work at Bayer, what it's like to be in the graduate roles, and as I said, we'll talk a little bit about the application process as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for introducing yourself. If you're all right to play a short video just around who Bayer are and what the kind of mission is, if you like, that would be great. So I think Connor's going to put a short video up on the screen.
We're visionaries, driven to solve the world's toughest challenges and striving for a world where health for all, hunger for none, is no longer a dream, but a real possibility. We're doing it with energy, curiosity, and sheer dedication, always learning from unique perspectives of those around us, expanding our thinking, growing our capabilities, and redefining impossible. There are so many reasons to join us, but if you're hungry to build a varied and meaningful career in a community of brilliant and diverse minds to make a meaningful difference, there's only one choice. Be you. Be Bayer.
Awesome. So hopefully, again, gives a little sort of flavor of the scale of Bayer and the variety of different areas in which the Bayer business works in, and we'll kind of delve into a little bit more of what that means on a day-to-day level as we go through. So I just wanted to touch upon the 6 streams that we have open this year. I think hopefully after the call you can have a look at the job adverts in question and delve into a little bit more detail around kind of what some of the day-to-day activities are, who the kind of best fit for the different streams that we're looking for in terms of some of the people skills as well. But I just wanted to give a bit of an overview for those who maybe haven't submitted an application yet, who might have registered on the portal, or who might have just seen the Bayer kind of webinar advertised to kind of bring it to life a little bit more. So we've got 6 roles. As I say, there's 2 slides here. So we'll start with oncology marketing. So again, this I think kind of primarily focuses on a number of drugs and a number of medical products that fall under the Bayer brand. And it's looking at kind of particularly the brand focused marketing of these different roles. So again, kind of a little bit more sort of product oriented, I think, with oncology. We then have global regulatory, which is I think a really interesting role, kind of primarily looking at sort of industry trends and industry updates around obviously a sort of fairly heavily regulated industry, and trying to sort of communicate those back to different areas of the business to ensure that you know, Bayer as a company, as a, you know, as product teams are compliant with some of those changes as well. So that's a little bit on global regulatory. Again, I should emphasize that these are kind of very short, snappy summaries. We'll hear a little bit more, and indeed I'd encourage you to kind of go and have a look at the adverts on the Bayer system to sort of find out in a little bit more detail, but just wanted to sort of bring the roles to life a little bit. Sales and marketing operations. This is a really broad role where there's I think multiple rotations around, as I say, both sales and marketing, different areas, primarily kind of focused on sort of customer experience, so a little bit on kind of customer journeys, and how customers interact with the Bayer brand. On our next slide, we have pharmaceutical marketing. This is, after sort of consultation with the managers, seemingly a sort of project management style role, so around sort of tracking progress and implementing new sort of suggestions and techniques to help kind of expand the reach of Bayer. The consumer health part of the business, there's also a kind of sales and marketing role that is a little bit more focused on the sort of digital platforms and some of the e-commerce work that Bayer is doing, helping to kind of, again, identify trends and optimize the sort of go-to-market strategy for those different platforms. And then lastly, we have our sort of route to market role, which is a sort of a combined role. There's two different functions within it, working across supply chain, but also customer marketing. So again, really good exposure to multiple different areas of the business. But as I say, full details on each of those roles are available either on our kind of target jobs page or indeed on the Bayer application platform as well. And hopefully we'll hear a little bit more around some of those streams in detail from the graduates themselves. Again, just very quickly wanted to run through kind of what to expect as part of the application process, and you will be sent the slides and the deck afterwards, so don't feel like you've got to scribble everything down here. We start off with a kind of online application or registration. We collect in a few details about yourself to kind of ensure that you're sort of eligible for the streams. And then we ask 3 sort of competency-based questions around sort of Bayer as a whole and the roles that you're applying for. So again, hopefully not a kind of hugely time-consuming process, but obviously just important to kind of register on the platform and for us to get a sense of who you are and what your sort of areas of interest and experience is. The next stage is a telephone interview. So you will speak with a member of our team, whereby we'll ask some questions kind of more based around your sort of motivation to join Bayer and your understanding of Bayer as a company and the different sort of roles that you're applying for. And then if you're successful from that stage, we will invite you to an in-person assessment centre at our offices in Reading, and we'll there have a kind of variety of exercises and tasks that we'll ask you to do. Again, hopefully giving you a really good insight as to, you know, on a physical level, the building that you'll be working in, but also a really good opportunity to kind of meet some of the hiring managers, some of the graduates in person as well. These will be running in February. We're just finalising the exact dates, and we'll look to communicate those to you as soon as possible if you are successful. But they'll be running kind of throughout the month of February. So again, hopefully not too long to wait from now. So that again is a sort of whistle-stop tour of the application process and what to expect from applying to Bayer. I think kind of main part of the session though is the questions for the graduates. So we're just going to run through some of these questions and hopefully have a bit of a sort of open forum discussion, if you like, with the grads that we have on the call. So if you, as I say, have any questions that are not asked, or if there's anything specific that you kind of want to touch upon, please do use the chat. I can see we've got lots of questions and comments coming in, which is great. So please do input that. And as I say, there'll be a period at the end of the session whereby we can pose some of those questions to the graduates themselves and the graduate recruitment team. But we'll start off, I guess, by sort of talking a little bit about kind of the specifics, some of the day-to-day activities of the different areas of the business that the grads are involved with. So I'm going to work in order that I see people on the bottom. So again, and Megan, I promise I'm not picking on you, but you're just first in line. So it would be great if you could kind of talk in a little bit more detail around kind of the area that you're working in now, some of the types of activities that you're involved with, just to kind of bring that to life a bit more.
Yeah, of course. So I've worked in a couple of areas of the business. So I worked in marketing for some of my rotations. So just to give a bit of a flavour of that. So when I worked in marketing, I did some work in digital marketing, and that involved me looking and monitoring performance of how our products, our clicks on our website, how were our websites performing. And in digital, you're working with the brand teams that we have. You're helping them out and helping them to accelerate and improve their digital projects. So you're kind of sitting across the brand teams and helping all the different brands out. So it's a really good way to get to know the brands that are in consumer health and learn about the portfolio. And I also did a bit of time in brand marketing. So that involved looking at our assets, so our website content, social campaigns that we're running, and getting those assets, working with the creative agencies and then also our medical teams to get the assets approved and live. And then at the moment I'm in sales, so a bit of a flavour of what I'm working on now, for example, is I'm looking at our Amazon listings and how we optimise those using our copy, our imagery, and looking at our performance marketing to see how we can kind of optimise where we sit on the Amazon search page. So that's a very quick whistle-stop tour, an example of a few bits that I've got up to in the 3 different areas that I've worked in. But yeah, if anyone has any more specific questions, obviously pop them in the chat and I'm happy to answer them.
Wonderful. Thank you, Megan. Really appreciate that. And I think, you know, even within sort of one graduate journey, if you like, one set of rotations that you've just described, clearly a huge amount of variety, and I think that's probably going to be a theme overall as we kind of talk through some of the topics today. Grace, if you wouldn't mind kind of going into a little bit of detail as to your journey and some of the activities that you've kind of been involved with as well, that'd be great.
So as I mentioned earlier on, I spent 6 months in the medical affairs team, and throughout that time, I was working on a digital transformation project with the medical information team. And I also spent time developing and understanding expertise in our industry code of practice, which is the PAGB, because I work within the consumer healthcare section. I took part in reviewing and also approving brand assets. So as Megan said, you know, we work quite closely with the marketing team, and there's that collaborative and cross-functional team working that takes place a lot, especially within the medical team. I then moved into regulatory affairs, and that was mainly I was working with the Irish team to maintain the regulatory portfolio. And so we did this by carrying out different variations, and also in a way we had that cross-functional approach again, where regulatory work closely with medical, and also you interact with the marketing team just to discuss our regulatory portfolio and the changes that need to be made. And then in my current rotation, so in business development and innovation, I'm currently working on a sustainability project. Oh, am I still here? Sorry, my thing still here. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, no, you are, Grace. I just thought I'd remove the slide quickly just so we can see.
No, it's fine. My view just changed completely, but yeah, so working on a sustainability project where we're looking into different credentials that we would like to use on our products going forward. And so this is a way for us to interact with our retailers. So for example, Sainsbury's, Asda, Superdrug, etc., to find out what they require from us at Bayer. And I'm also working on new product development. So looking into products that will be launched maybe in the next year or 2, and then just managing that and seeing that from initial point all the way through to when it's on the shelves. So,
Brilliant.
yeah, quick
Yeah,
overview.
sounds like certainly enough to keep you busy for sure.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely.
And then one of the questions that I've just seen in the chat is around kind of what sort of degree backgrounds everyone's come from. So Grace, I don't know if you mind just sharing kind of what sort of your university background was, and then Megan as well.
Yeah, so I studied pharmacy at university, and then I spent a year doing my pre-registration. So I qualified to become a pharmacist, I think last year or 2 years ago. And then from there, I went straight into my graduate program. So,
Fantastic.
from a pharmacy background.
Thank you. And Megan.
So yeah, my degree's in business management, so a lot more generic than obviously Grace is really specific, but to that it's got that medicine link. But yeah, mine was business management, and I did a placement year as well. So at IBM. So yeah, transferable skills from the business management degree to come into this industry.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think there was a slight kind of loaded reason for asking that question, and was to see kind of the variety of different kind of backgrounds that I think all have, as you say, kind of real value, and in the different perspectives at Bayer as well. There are, I think, some areas that are perhaps a little bit more kind of oriented towards that kind of pharmacy background, as you mentioned, Grace, but I think there's certainly a lot of benefit that can come from studying different degrees and being able to bring that perspective in the sort of business environment as well. Emily, would be great to hear from you a little bit around your sort of day-to-day activities, and again, just kind of what your background was and how that sort of played through into the role of Bayer.
Of course, can you hear me okay, just to check?
Yes, coming through loud and clear.
So my background, just before we get into what I do, I did a pharmacology degree in Scotland, and then I did medicine for a couple of years, and then came here. And then during my pharmacology degree, I did an internship in NHS management, which I feel was very useful for this, due to the sort of job I do. So my job, as I've said, is in patient access. So I've got like a twofold job. I don't do rotations like everyone else does, but I work 50% in government affairs. So it's a lot of responding to government announcements to do with the healthcare and the state of healthcare and the impact that will have on our business. So quite often I'll go into London, and I've visited the House of Commons and done some really interesting things with that. And then it's also about working with patient organisations and charities to have relationships which benefit both Bayer and these charities. So that's really interesting. And then I should add that I'm in the pharmaceutical division, so which is different to consumer health. So obviously, like we're more about the drugs. And then my other 50% is working in digital healthcare. So that is with a team. We basically look at, it's quite a new concept, but we're basically looking at apps that we can bring into the company to support either existing drugs or drugs that we have in our pipeline. And this is quite a new concept, so that's still in the foundation process, and I've been brought along as part of that, which is really interesting to get to see that coming alive. So that's
fantastic, great stuff. And I think, again, sort of the theme that I'm maybe picking up is the sort of some of the specific roles I think might have, I think, a bit more of a leaning towards a sort of pharma background, if you like, whereas I know that a lot of the positions that we're advertising this year, particularly some of the kind of the marketing roles, there's a little bit more kind of flexibility, as you mentioned, kind of Megan, to sort of bring in different sort of skills, different areas of focus. But likewise, for those from a sort of pharmacology, pharmaceutical background, I think actually, is clearly a great place to work as well. And there's almost, I think, scope, if you like, in whichever area of the business you're in, to be able to kind of dial up, some of those different skill sets as well. And yeah, it sounds fascinating in terms of some of the work with government organizations, as you say, perhaps kind of tying in a little bit to that sort of regulatory type role that we've got at the moment open as well. So thank you very much for that. I have just had an email from Dominica saying there's maybe some internet issues, so certainly not wanting to skip over her, but for the benefit of everyone on the call, we'll move forward with the sort of next set of questions. But again, hopefully really useful to kind of get a bit more of a deep dive around kind of some of the activities at Bayer, and again, you can see the variety across the different streams as well. So one of the sort of questions, and I might put this out as a kind of open question to grads and to the grad recruitment team as well, is around, I guess, the sort of overall culture at Bayer and what it's like to work at Bayer as a sort of high level. So rather than necessarily your role or your area particularly, what your sort of thoughts were on, Bayer as an organisation, some of the kind of, positives of that, maybe some of the challenges, and to sort of talk through that a little bit. So again, I'll put that out to the floor, and feel free to jump in wherever's best, really. Otherwise, I'll pick on people, but yeah, feel free.
Oh, I don't mind starting on this one. So I'd say working at Bayer, the culture is amazing. I think the culture is amazing at Bayer. Everyone you talk to from any department, it doesn't, obviously I work in consumer health, but if I had to reach out to someone from pharmaceutical part of the business, everyone's really friendly and approachable and really helpful. And I find that everyone wants to help you develop. If you need support from someone or you need some advice, everyone's willing to help or point you in that kind of right direction. And I say working at Bayer, there's really good work-life balance. And I think it's, they promote that, we come to work and everyone gets their work done, but also making sure you take that time outside of work to get away from your computer and do other things. So I think that's really important. And then I just say one last thing I'd say is that the culture at Bayer really is encouraging. I think Grace and everyone's kind of touched on it, is like cross-functional working and working with other teams, not just sticking in your own little kind of silo, reaching out to people, and obviously everyone being really approachable helps massively with that. So they're just a few things that I really enjoy working at Bayer, and I think the culture is kind of second to none. Having worked in another company on my placement, I'd say it made me realise how brilliant the culture is at Bayer. So I don't know if anyone else obviously wants to jump in.
Fab, thanks, Megan. Maybe Faye or Jodie or Joe, perhaps from a kind of slightly more senior level. What I mean, hopefully good news that Megan's kind of feeling like that's the culture, and certainly from the conversation with managers. But yeah, what about from your perspective?
I would second, what Megan has said. I think from my time here at Bayer over the 8 years, and doing a lot of interviews and meeting people from all sides of our business, that the people culture is what comes across really strong at Bayer. So the development side on the people culture is massive. We, from an HR perspective, we are all the time looking at developing talent and finding new opportunities for talent. So that comes through and through, I think, all the time. And even from where I've sat in interviews, interviewing external people, you'll find that message comes across about people want to join Bayer because of the people. So there cross functions, as Megan also said, and in your own functions as well. We see that all the time. I think that is a strong emphasis. But the life values that we've got, you'll find that they are carried through in each and every one of our roles. I think we can identify with those, and you'll see when you join Bayer and when you speak to Bayer or talk to people within the company, you'll find that that's evident. That runs through the company, the life values.
Real fantastic. Sorry, over to you, Joe.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I've worked in lots of different companies, and I'd agree this is like one of the best cultures, because everybody is trying. So I've been here since March, so sort of relatively new. And it's all about being yourself, so bringing yourself to work, so really being authentic. But every time I'm trying to do something, I'm trying to find something, what I get is everybody trying to help me. So it's a really sort of supportive environment as well, I would say. And everyone's there to help you be the best version of yourself and help you develop as much as you want to. So the opportunities are there. It's working out, how do I sort of manage it all, if you like. But yeah, it's been a really sort of good experience for me so far.
Awesome.
Hi everyone, and I guess I just want to echo what Faye, Joe and Megan have said, in that I've worked across the business. So I've worked across pharma, I'm now with consumer health, enabling functions and crop science, and everything that they've talked about I've seen across all of those parts of the business. So it really does carry across Bayer as a whole, and it's really good to see, and it's a really nice company to be part of.
Awesome, fantastic. And I think, again, I don't work at Bayer from the conversations that I've had with managers, and certainly trying to sort of understand the roles themselves. I think certainly the point around kind of you have almost as much runway as you'd like, I think is something that really came through. And actually, if you're willing to sort of, you know, take these various different opportunities that are available, and particularly as Grace mentioned around that kind of, you know, ability to work across teams, I think you know, the world, or indeed Bayer, is your oyster. I think it's the ability to work, you know, in different areas, as Jodie's just mentioned, actually kind of moving, you know, across kind of two sides of the business even is I think something that seems to be very much encouraged. And actually in the roles that we've spoken about, you know, on many of them there are rotations, so you get that kind of broader view, broader experience of Bayer as a whole, which I think is something that's, you know, quite tricky to do for a large company, a company of Bayer's size, to be able to give that visibility, you know, not just in a kind of tokenistic way, but actually to kind of have in-depth understanding of what it's like to work in different business areas. And I know there was a question in the chat earlier about kind of saying around, is it sort of long enough to sort of work in, you know, one area for, you know, if it's 6 months, if it's 9 months, to kind of get a thorough understanding and to be able to do that. So I don't know, potentially Grace or Emily, you know, from your experience, but potentially Grace, I know you mentioned there's been a few more rotations perhaps in your area than Emily. You mentioned kind of it's a little bit more set. So I don't know if you've kind of found that, if in that period you're able to kind of really get stuck in and you know, be able to sort of give back to that area of the business in that sort of time frame.
Yeah, so I've shared this previously because I get to spend 6 months in each rotation, and I have found it quite difficult to get fully, not necessarily stuck in. It's easy to get stuck in, but to develop to the level that you want to, or you desire to develop to, I think it's difficult within such a short period of time. I guess Megan, Emily, you can speak on whether 9 months you think is better suited for a rotation. But yeah, I do think if I had the extra 3 months in each team, I would have benefited much more from it. And I think going forward, the global regulatory role is 2 9 months, and that's based on people have been taking that feedback on and then trying to make the changes where necessary. But I think especially with regulatory, and there's so much to learn, there's a ton of regulations to learn, I would have loved to have some extra time just to really you know, get my teeth into it as much as I would have liked to. But I would say in my program, I've been able to get that breadth of experience, which I'm really thankful for, and that exposure to different teams and ways of working. But I won't necessarily say I have that depth. So I have the breadth, but not the depth that I guess I would have loved to have. But yeah, it's still been a great experience. Again, having that experience in 3 different teams has been so beneficial to me, even moving from one team to the next. It's helped me having that understanding of medical when I've been in regulatory, and now that I'm in BD&I, having that medical and regulatory experience. So yeah, definitely grateful for it, but would definitely love more time in each rotation.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's come across with the roles is that, as you say, you have that variety. So I guess kind of on the basis of Grace's feedback there, if you are watching this and you think, actually, I would really like to, I kind of know a little bit more around which area I'd like, and I'd love that kind of longer period to be able to kind of embed myself, fully understand it, as you say, particularly somewhere like regulatory, where there's a lot to learn, a lot of, you know, ideas, then maybe that stream's kind of better for you. Likewise, we've got options where there's kind of 3 rotations within the scheme. And if you're, you know, maybe less certain around kind of one specific area, but would like that kind of broader experience of working in different areas of the business, again, you've kind of heard from Grace there that it's, you know, a really beneficial thing to have that. So again, different options kind of depending on your sort of preference, I guess. Yeah. Megan and Emily, anything to, and Joe, anything to sort of add to that?
I'll let Megan and Emily go first.
I can. So my rotations, my programs are changing slightly whilst I was on it based on the needs of the business. So I ended up spending 12 months in marketing. I spent 4 of those months in digital and 8 of the months in brand marketing. So I'd say obviously the 8 months was kind of nearly 9. I felt that was long enough in a single rotation to get stuck in, because I guess you end up spending the first few months, I guess, getting to know people, learning and understanding. The middle few months, I guess, is almost like getting to have a bit more, you're starting to understand what's going on, you're picking things up. And then by those final few months, I felt like I was kind of had a really good understanding of, so you're not going to know everything. You're never going to know everything from that function or in kind of 9 months. But I felt like I'd gained a really good understanding of what the brand marketing team did and what the day-to-day activities were and how they operated as a function. So I do think 9 months is that kind of right. Obviously, Grace was saying 6 months isn't quite enough, but I feel that, yeah, those few extra months, that 9 months does give you that kind of opportunity to get stuck in and understand what's kind of going on. And even the rotation I'm in now, I'm in sales. When I leave sales, I've been in sales for 6 months. So like Grace said, with a few more months, I'd have a more of a in-depth understanding, but it's even good to have that breadth to understand and then appreciate like what sales do when I go back to marketing.
For sure. Fantastic. Emily or Joe, I don't know. Yeah.
Hello. I'm happy to come in. Obviously, I only started this graduate scheme in September, so around about 3-4 months now. But I do think having rotations is a great thing. Just for the way my role worked, I didn't get one because I'm doing a 50-50 role, so it's just slightly different. I do think it's a great thing, whether it's 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. I guess that just depends on the department that you're in and the kind of projects you're working on at the time. But I do think it is nice to kind of see the result of the work that you've done and get to see that. But either way, like the whole company is so nicely connected that even if you do move on, you still get to kind of talk to everyone and see what progress the work that you initially started working on has made. So I think either way, it's a win-win, really. And I do think it's good that the rotations, for instance, in regulatory affairs have changed to be slightly more time between each rotation. That does give you a bit more time to kind of settle in and get to grips with everything.
Yeah, and I suppose my point really has been illustrated already by what Emily and Megan have said in terms of, we say, we've got some that have got 2, some that have got 3, but as you've heard, they change. So based on what the business needs and the conversations that happen. The other thing I say about the program in general is there's a lot of flexibility in there and a lot of sort of building on what we're doing. So every year we're trying to build on everybody's experience. So we're getting feedback from the graduates. We're understanding what's working, what's not working, what else do you need, and trying to build that into the program. So I'd definitely say, this is a sort of a reflection of that in terms of you've seen some of the rotations changing in terms of their length as well.
Fantastic. And again, just to clarify, how many years are we now into the kind of graduate program of as you say, each year being a sort of iterative experience and taking feedback on? That's been going on for quite a while now, hasn't it?
So I think our first grad scheme was in 2016.
Yeah, fantastic.
Official, and then there was a little gap. I think maybe in 2018. I can't quite remember, but we had 1 year where we didn't have an intake. So we've been learning ever since then and building on that feedback and building that program out.
Yeah, fantastic. So again, hopefully reassuring for prospective applicants on the call that this is, something that's been going on a little while, and as you say, has been improving each year iteratively as well, which is obviously great to hear. I would just ask one kind of final question from our side, because I'm keen to make sure there's loads of questions coming in that I want to leave time for at the end. So just a final one, I guess, perhaps a little bit more around the kind of application process. If you're able to cast your minds back to when you were applying for the roles at Bayer, I guess we'll start off potentially with Megan, Grace and Emily. Is there any kind of particular sort of advice that you would give to someone who's applying for some of the roles at the moment? Obviously, in terms of the sort of application process, we've got the initial online, the telephone interview and the assessment centre. Kind of across those stages, is there any sort of particular bit of advice that you would give to prospective applicants?
I don't mind starting, and then obviously Grace. But I would say it sounds really cheesy, and everyone says it, but be yourself, because at the end of the day, like Joe said, you can come to work at Bayer, you come to work as yourself. So in your application, just be yourself, because I think that's so important. And then, you know, as you go through each stage, not that it's obviously these application processes are quite hard. I did so many of them. I know they're not easy, but if you're being yourself, it's just an easier process to kind of get through. But yeah, I would say that would be my kind of main advice. And I'd say the only other thing is that a lot of companies do these video interviews where you talk to yourself and answer questions. And I think what I found really good about the application process at Bayer is that you actually speak to someone in like a telephone interview rather than unnaturally talking to yourself, because you're just talking to the wall basically. So I would say obviously really use that opportunity in that telephone interview as well to kind of get across yourself and your personality. I found in other application processes that was quite difficult. So I'd just say, yeah, really take that opportunity if you're able to get through to kind of that stage to, yeah, carry on being yourself and, yeah, show your personality at that stage. But yeah, I don't know what Grace and Emily, I don't know what you would add.
Yeah, I think I'd also mention the first thing that I wrote down was be yourself. So I think we're all in agreement that for me, I think you're most comfortable and confident when you're just being yourself. And I think you have a better chance at succeeding when you are. I think I had a call with HR before my interview, and I think maybe it was with Faye. I'm not sure who exactly it was with, but someone did mention like just be yourself. And I don't know why, but I carried that through to my interview. And for some reason, I left it thinking, even if I don't get the role, I actually really enjoyed that because I just felt like I was being myself. So yeah, in terms of practical tips, I would say definitely research the company, and I think also like take some time to look at the initiatives that Bayer are a part of, or what we're doing outside of just, you know, or look maybe things outside of like our portfolio. I think also share some of the activities that you get up to outside of work or school, uni. As Megan said, it's a great way to show your personality and to show off other skills that you may have. For example, like it might be great working within a team. And then also research the life values and try to, think of examples that match up against each life value that you can use within your initial application. And then also if you get to interview stage, you can also share that within the interview. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Grace.
I don't mind. Can you hear me? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes. Checking every time now. Yeah, exactly what Grace and Megan have said. I would echo all those statements. It does sound cliche, but just be yourself. And at the end of the day, it's not just about whether they want to bring you on board. It's also about whether you think you'd enjoy it. So I think that's just as important. And it is quite as has just been said, it is nice how you don't have to do any virtual recordings where you're just talking to a camera, because those are always extremely awkward. It's nice that they are interested in meeting you in the flesh and getting to know you as a person. And I would say just enjoy it as well. It can be quite fun. It doesn't have to be super stressful. At the end of the day, you just have to be yourself, because as if you were to get the job, as soon as you start, you can only be yourself anyway. So don't worry about trying to seem like anything other than exactly who you are. I would say, as cliche and, you know, funny as that sounds.
No, I think that last point particularly is really valid, is that actually, without meaning to kind of look at it from the negative side, if you do feel like you're sort of putting something on or something, you're maybe only kind of delaying a problem later. If you were to get the job, that fit might not quite be right. Whereas, as has been mentioned and emphasized, if you are able to kind of express yourself, express kind of your interests, your passions, your research in Bayer as an organization, that will shine through, and I think ultimately lead to a kind of much happier sort of, you know, marriage, if you like, between yourself and the role that you'll be in, and you know, hopefully that you can see from the comments of you know, people that are working at Bayer, that's not just a flashy corporate slogan. That's something that's kind of embodied within the business, and I think is hopefully what an event like today is all about, really. So apologies, Faye, Jodie, and Joe. I'm going to move on, if that's all right, just to the questions and answers that we've got in the chat, because there are lots of them. So again, I'll be kind of working my way through. I'll do as best I can to kind of get through as many as possible. So please forgive me if I don't answer all of your questions. So I know Faye and a number of the grads have been answering questions in the chat as well. So we've covered off around the kind of rotations and how long that is. So Siamak, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, but Siamak asked around what some of the major challenges were during the program. And I think, again, in the interest of kind of honesty and transparency that we've spoken about, and about being yourself, that's, you know, an important thing to consider. So again, don't know who wants to jump in there around what, you know, some of the things that you had to learn and some of the challenges were initially.
I don't mind jumping in. So this is like similar to the point that I mentioned before. For me, one of the main challenges was just trying to get stuck in as quick as possible whilst we're rotating into a new team. And I would say another challenge is coming from a healthcare background, so working in hospital and community pharmacy. It's just having that mental switch that I think is required once you come into the corporate world. And like, I used to regard individuals as patients, and in consumer healthcare, we regard them as consumers. And so it's just being aware that although we're all working towards the same goal, the language is different and the way that we approach things is different. So yeah, I would say for those who are currently working in hospital or maybe studying like medicine, pharmacy, or anything related to the sciences, it's just being aware that you might have a transition period when you come into the corporate world, I say, but yeah. So that was my biggest challenge, I would say, going
Fantastic, thank you. I might try and kind of limit if we maybe just have one answer from one person, just because I'm conscious that there's a few sort of questions to get through. So Megan has asked, not our Megan, but Megan Dyer on the chat has asked if there are if you had any kind of expectations around the sort of career path that you had kind of envisaged, I guess, that have maybe sort of changed since being in the role in a sort of a good or a bad way, really. What I guess were your sort of initial expectations versus the sort of reality of the role, and you know, how are they different? Again, potentially one for sort of Megan or Emily, perhaps.
I don't mind taking this one, Emily. So I would say, so I previously worked as my part-time job in community pharmacy as a dispensing assistant. So I would say I had a few preconceived ideas about what it would be like to, I guess, be in like the commercial side of the industry. So I was aware there would be obviously like regulations in terms of marketing and sales, but I would say I found it interesting kind of seeing what that level was and how it works within consumer health. So obviously consumer health is less regulated than a kind of pharma part of the business, but there are still quite high levels of regulation for someone that maybe hasn't worked in the industry. So whereas obviously Grace probably had all the kind of medical knowledge and training and understanding, I would say that, yeah, I found it kind of my expectations were, yeah, there'd be some regulation, bit of red tape, but learning and understanding, I'd say those expectations, and now you get used to it in your role. I got used to kind of the regulations that we obviously have to abide by, and within kind of consumer health and sales and marketing in the departments I've worked in. But I would say, yeah, that was kind of my main thing that I kind of was a bit of a difference in. I don't know if that's answered the question. Sorry, I feel like I've gone off, or whether.
I think for sure, yeah. There's and I suppose is kind of probably going to be the same in a different way, but the same for everyone joining the business. As you mentioned, obviously coming from a sort of more of a business background as opposed to Grace with more of a sort of a pharmacy background, you've almost, I think, kind of each answered that, and the different sort of learning points that were able to be made up. But I think the key point there is that, as you say, you were able to kind of get that sort of level of knowledge over the course of your sort of rotations at Bayer, and I think is one of the things that we have tried. I know, Faye, when we've had those kind of initial discussions, to kind of try and keep that as broad as possible, because fundamentally what we're looking for are those kind of, you know, life values, those competencies for people at Bayer. And actually we recognize that there's going to be, for various different areas, some kind of, you know, knowledge gap. We're not expecting you to kind of come in and know absolutely everything, and so hopefully what kind of that answer demonstrates, and what we're trying to achieve at Bayer is the ability to be able to kind of take on, as you say, take on individuals and then build up that kind of, subject specific knowledge with the rotations that, will be part of the role as well. So thank you very much, Megan. I can see Sophie's joined. Hi, Sophie. We're just at the sort of Q&A part of the end of the session. So we've got a number of questions coming in from the participants. I'm going to be asking those to the group, but thanks very much for making it on. A question perhaps more for Faye, Jodie and Joe. Neve has asked, what's the kind of training and support like for each part of the rotation or indeed for the sort of 2-year scheme overall? I don't know if that's one that can answer, if there's any sort of support or training that's available kind of as part of the scheme overall.
Yeah. So basically there's a mixture. So within each of your rotations and in your business, they manage the sort of day-to-day business development and training. So that's where you'll receive, I suppose, the support in the understanding the business that you're in. And then where we come in is helping with the sort of personal side. So there's a number of things. And this year we've put in place, which is going to start shortly, just some sessions quarterly about understanding yourself more. So really understanding, like, how do you come across? How can you sort of manage your stakeholders? How do you influence people? They also have a coach. So we have a clarity coach who's going to work with all of our graduates, and that's across the program. There's sort of mentoring as well within the team. So within the business, every graduate should have a mentor and a buddy, as well as a line manager. So there are a number of different things. There's also the ability to then do external courses. If people find something that's suitable, then they can sign up for that as well. So there's a number of different things that happen. And again, it's one of those areas where we're constantly looking to see, have we got the right sort of formula and mix of things, or what are we missing, and how do we sort of bring that in?
Wonderful. Thank you, Joe. And I think, again, is something that is not necessarily unique, but certainly really the level of depth there that you've just described at a large company like Bayer. I suppose from my experience, I've worked at very, very small companies before where, L&D was kind of what you did with the 5 minutes that you had at the end of the day. So I think kind of that more structured approach, again, will really suit a lot of people on the call potentially. So thanks for kind of running through, and again, huge variety there in terms of what you can get involved with, what suits you, and hopefully, again, emphasizing the point that it's not the BU slogan is not just lip service. There's a kind of awareness coaches that you've spoken about, actually providing a little bit of structure and clarity to kind of learning about yourself, learning about how you work, etc. So thank you very much for that level of detail. Just a quick one that I can answer from Oliver Wright, great name by the way, who has asked to say, got a telephone interview coming up. Will this be an open conversation or more of kind of structured questioning? Probably more the latter. There'll be kind of a couple of questions that we want to ask around sort of, as I say, motivation around Bayer. Again, we'd really encourage you to do your research there if you do have a telephone interview. We obviously want to make sure that it's a forum where, as Megan, Grace and Emily have alluded to, there's a conversation there. So it's not kind of, as you say, you're answering a question straight at the wall. It is a telephone interview. We do want that to be a sort of a conversation, but again, it will be kind of around some questions. So maybe a sort of balance between the two is what to expect from the telephone interview. But again, main point would really encourage you to kind of have a think around, why it is that you kind of keen on joining Bayer. Maybe some of the stuff that you've heard today has helped kind of reinforce that as well. So just a quick one from me. Again, perhaps kind of Faye, Jodie or Sophie, one for you. Ursula's asked, do most people work from home or go into the office? What's the sort of working style typically at Bayer?
I'm happy to this one if you like, but feel free to jump in as well. I think our working approach is really flexible. It does vary across within the business and different teams. So each team kind of bases it on what their need is for presence in the office. But our working approach is a hybrid model. So it is flexible in that you have the opportunity to work both in the office and from home as well. And we do encourage people to come into the office. It's a great way to be able to collaborate, meet with the team, see other people. And it's a really good way to maintain that social connection with your colleagues. But we do a flexible work model.
Fantastic, thank you. And Sophie, what's your kind of experience of that been like, I guess?
Yeah, exactly as Jodie said, it kind of depends on the team. I'm in the oncology team, so in pharma we often encourage people to come in on Tuesdays if they can, if they're comfortable with it. And then as an oncology team, we come in on a Wednesdays, again, if they can and if they're comfortable with it. It's very up to what you want to do. When I first joined the graduate program, I tried to be in as much as possible, and if that is what people are interested in, then I can encourage you to do that. You learn a lot through that, you meet a lot of people, and you just get a handle of the office. And the office has free coffees and teas, which is always great to get that caffeine fix for the day. But yeah, you learn a lot from just being there. So it was really, if that's my top tip, that it was really good for me. But then again, there is flexibility to have that hybrid working if you can't be in all the time, or if you can't be in.
Awesome, fantastic, and hopefully gives a kind of an insight as to what that's like in practice. And really good to have that kind of flexibility there. I think I'm sure there's a lot of people on the call who'll be pleased to hear that that's kind of there's options for both. As you say, there's some real benefits being in the office, but also to have that flexibility is really, really good. I'm conscious of time, so again, might rattle through some of these. Kilner has asked, there's more than one role that I'm interested in. Mention this in the application. Is the interview purely based off the role to apply for, or is there a chance to be considered for other graduate roles too? The short answer is yes, there is. We're trying to take a kind of holistic view, and hopefully one of the themes that you've picked up from this is around that kind of cross-functional working, and we want to make sure that that's kind of in our application process as well. So absolutely, if you want to apply for more than one role, then that's fine. But certainly, if you've applied for one, we will absolutely consider your application kind of and try and understand if there's suitability for some of the other programs. We recognize that there are similarities, there's differences. We've spoken about some of the rotations and hopefully some of the kind of content of that, but we recognize that there are maybe similarities, and if we find that someone might be a really good fit for a stream they haven't applied for, we'll absolutely consider applications kind of across the board there, really. Faye, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to kind of add there, or if that was sort of overall our sort of thesis or something.
I think you've definitely said it. Yeah, of course we will consider, if that criteria is there, we would definitely consider applications across all roles.
Perfect, fantastic. Again, just going through, there's a good question from Francesca, and again, I know we've kind of alluded to some of it before, but again, perhaps specifically, are there any sort of groups or clubs or opportunities, perhaps more on a sort of social side or a working group side, that there's an opportunity to sort of be involved with as part of the graduate program? Again, I don't know if that's more of a question for Jodie, Joe, or the grads, but feel free to jump in there.
I can say that from as one of the grads, there's a few opportunities. Obviously, all the grads are lovely, so you're friends with them anyway. In and out with work. There's also things such as Young Bear, which is a online community for everyone, not just in the UK, but in all the different countries that Bear operate in. Anyone who's classed as young, and there's always debates over what is classed as young, but that doesn't matter for now. Can join, and it's just a way to bring people together and enable in the future cross-functional working between different countries and Young Bear employees. So there's that I can think of. Jodie and Joe, you'll know more.
Awesome, thanks, Emily. I don't know, yeah, Joe, if you're able just to jump in finally.
Yeah, so I think definitely when we were back full time in the office, there's a green park. So we're in a business park, and there was different things you can get involved within that community. I think there's probably things that happen within teams more than say we organise or anything. I think it will come together in teams. So I don't know, Faye, if there's anything else that you've seen.
Sorry, to mute off. No, not officially, really. No, and I think it depends probably on the groups that come in, and also we've got, I guess, our apprentice groups as well that start in September. So there's early careers across the board that there will be different groups of people that you can probably make connections with as well.
Awesome, great stuff. Well, I'm conscious of time and not wanting to keep anyone too much longer. Thank you so much. I think, it's fair to say that this has been a hugely insightful session and really has helped, I think, lift the lid on what it's like to work at Bayer, what it's like to kind of go through the application process, the variety of different roles that we have available. Huge thank you to our speakers today for giving up their time to, as I say, those who've joined watching live and those who will be watching the recording as well. Really grateful to you all for kind of providing your insight as well. Apologies if I didn't quite get to answer your question. There have been loads coming in, but hopefully kind of got the majority of those questions answered, and again kind of provided a really good insight. If I can just get Connor, if you wouldn't mind just loading up the very last slide just about kind of what's next if you haven't yet applied. So again, sorry, that's the chat Q&A. And then the very last slide here, if you haven't yet submitted your application, please do. We do close for applications on Friday of next week, but if you are able to submit them earlier, we are kind of processing candidates through, successful candidates through to a telephone interview from now. So please do kind of submit your application as soon as possible. That would be great. As has been mentioned, you'll be given an option to kind of give a preference for a second stream if you are kind of interested in multiple vacancies. So again, if that's something that you'd like to be considered for, please do put that down. And then if you do have any questions, we've got the email address there that you can email us if there's any sort of follow-up from this webinar or any other questions that you might have about the process, please do let us know. But as I say, one last time, big thank you to our speakers for your time, and I hope that was a really useful session. So I think we'll end it there, but thanks very much for joining, and best of luck with your application process, and thanks again to everyone on the call.
Thanks everyone.
Good luck everyone.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.
Cheers all,
Bye.
thanks.
Thanks for joining, everyone.